Today, we'll be discussing whether you should sell or hold the Jordan 4 Military Blue and why. And I'll just say now, this is one of the most interesting situations for any sneaker, especially given Nike's recent deceptive move on the CPFM shock drop today. The Jordan 4 Military Blue has their full release tomorrow, May 4th, for $215. However, they already had a shock drop with over 100,000 pairs being released, those of which are already in circulation. Congrats if you copped there, and congrats if you copped today's shock drop, the CPFM Air Force 1. This one was much more low-key, and this was very intentional on Nike's end. You can definitely expect them to pull this maneuver on other limited hype sneakers too. You see, they actually used a fake placeholder time on the back end, having most people think it was tomorrow, and that's why this time around there wasn't many leaks. For early info on future drops like this and free alerts and guides, just check out the link below. Now, despite Nike already dropping 100,000 pairs via the shock drop, another 100 to 120,000 pairs should be dropping on Nike alone tomorrow. This number is actually proportionally pretty small since Nike usually gets the majority of the stock, and the total stock produced on these was 1.2 million pairs according to the pre-allocation data on Nike's backend. With that said, just like Nike tried to fool everyone with the fake time for CPFM, could they also be manipulating the market and expectations with inflated stock numbers to try to prevent resellers from trying for them? There's no way to know for sure until after the drop, and that's what makes this one so interesting. In order to determine if the Jordan 4 Military Blue will be a fruitful hold, we will cover an estimated range of what the sneaker will settle at after the drop, and also when these shipments come in, essentially the pairs going in circulation, whether they're expected to increase post-drop or even continue to decrease, and finally, what type of margin we're looking at for these in terms of holding. Not the retail to resell initial margin, but rather the hold margin over X period of time. Basically, even if they do go up, are they going to be worth your time or not? Kicking it off, let's discuss the estimated range that these should be settling at. Assuming stock really is 1.2 million, I cannot expect a positive impulsivity effect. In the best case scenario, I'd expect these to hold their current prices post-drop, which I do think makes sense since it appears the public is already pricing in this huge stock. These have super high demand, but they're already at an average of $238 pre-drop, far less than most Jordan 4s with this kind of demand. In the hypothetical case that Nike did fabricate the numbers, on the other hand, prices would definitely see a massive jump tomorrow morning, like at least a 15% jump. If I had to bet though, I'd bet that this is not the case for two reasons. For one, this would be the first time Nike ever tried to deceive resellers with stock numbers. Not in general, as they do with shock drop times, attempt deception, but they've never done it deliberately with stock numbers. And for two, from what I have heard, corporate retailers and boutiques have received very high amounts of stock for these. So the 200,000 stock total that Nike is dropping from the shock drop, 100K, and 100 to 120K pairs tomorrow, this would still be disproportionate from a typical drop, since in this rare case, most of the stock would be sold outside of Nike by a pretty large margin, but I'd still, regardless of that, bet on this being the case. We'll see though. As of now, I'll take the conservative bet and assume that the 1.2 million stock is legit and Nike is not trying to deceive and deter resellers, but we'll see. Now, let's discuss what price will look like once shipments go out in the 2 to 3 week range. During this period, the vast majority of pairs will go in circulation, aside from the amount of pairs that already went out through the shock drop and of course some early corporate resellers. Normally we see a 10% decrease in value for general releases, and I do think that is the most probable case for these. Even despite the super high stock, I wouldn't expect more than that 10% since a lot of this is already priced in. They're already super low in value at $238 pre-drop. With that said, I can see these averaging below retail at $214 on average when everyone gets their pairs 2 to 3 weeks from now. So some small sizes like 8 might be lower than that, and some of the larger sizes like 11 to 12 might be $230 to $240. So not really enough to make profit on if you get your shipments that late, unless of course you are selling locally and you have no tax in your state. You could avoid those platform fees, like you're not selling on StockX or GOAT. In those cases, on those very large sizes, you could actually make a little bit of profit. Now that the average price range at those points in time are evident, let's discuss whether they're expected to increase from the post-shipment prices or even continue to decrease. Normally, Jordan 4s do appreciate in value, especially on high-demand colorways. With a whopping 1.2 million pairs though, is this still possible? And I would say yes, since I do think that they'll reach a fair value. And from there, I do think they'll eventually increase. From that low price of $214, I definitely think they'll go up. But just like Jordan 11s with super high stock and demand, I think it's going to take a very long time. I'd say they will most likely plateau for about a year and then start to increase. Finally, regarding the hold margin on these, basically, are they going to be worth your time even if they do go up? Given that I'm not expecting an increase in the short term, obviously there would be no positive short term ROI. If these were to eventually increase by a small amount like Jordan 11s begin to, the ROI would actually be slightly better on these compared to Jordan 11s, since they'd be starting at a much lower value. If they were to increase by, say, $50, there would be about a 20 to 35% ROI from the value of your pair, depending on what you could have got for them when your shipment came in, and that isn't really terrible. So despite the huge stock, I wouldn't say these are the worst hold, since their starting value is so low. It leaves a lot of room for a good ROI. But I also wouldn't say it's an above average hold. It's really hard to say that when stock is this massive, but it is possible they eventually increase by a substantial amount like some classic Jordan 11s do. So with that said, I would rate these slightly below average at 4 out of 10. Overall, I would say your best bet is to sell these as soon as possible, but it wouldn't be the worst hold that we've discussed on this channel. There have been worse ones than this, so it might not be the end of the world if you do choose to hold some size 11 or 12. Also, remember to join the free Discord with the link below for free alerts and guides and stuff that goes beyond sneaker reselling. Let me know what you guys do with your pairs down in the comments below. Since this is just a discussion at the end of the day, I can't predict the future. That's just my personal analysis based on the data that I've acknowledged. We have a lot of brilliant minds watching right now, so I implore you to leave some comments below. And also check out Endurance with the same link in the description if you're looking to broaden your horizons as a reseller and entrepreneur outside of just sneakers. With that though, I'll see you guys later. Good luck on the drop, or congrats if you already copped.